I'm about to make a very controversial video today. Or at least it probably would be had it been made about 4 years ago. But after everything that has happened from 2020 up to now, I don't think this will be controversial in the slightest to say, how in God's name did we get here? It has been a while since I made my first Why I Won't Watch Aquaman video, and I remember myself talking about how Warner Bros.' plans for the DCU in the future did not sound like it was going to get better, but was in fact going to get much worse. And oh my god, I was right. It did in fact not get better. It got so bad that they're now completely rebooting the universe entirely, which I will talk about later on. But let's slow down for a minute and recap my thoughts from the previous video. Batman vs Superman was strike one for me. I found the film severely underwhelming, and even watching the Ultimate Edition didn't change my opinion. I don't think it was bad, but it's definitely not good by any means. Suicide Squad was strike two. I think this movie is terrible. It's horribly edited, shoddily paced, and the tone was all over the place. Definitely one of my least favorite films in the DCU, and it really made me worry for the then upcoming Justice League movie. Wonder Woman, although I did like it, I thought it was very overhyped. The plot and characters were written much better, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking, and the final act was so bad it almost killed the film for me. But it was a good film, I won't deny that. But then came Justice League, and that was strike three. I don't think I need to go into any more detail about why I think this is one of the worst comic book films ever made. You can watch my 6-part miniseries where I found every single possible problem that film had. But after Justice League, I was done. I was convinced that the DCU was doomed, and I made a promise that I wouldn't see any other movie they release unless they proved me wrong. Ultimately, I broke that promise when I decided to watch the Wonder Woman sequel, Wonder Woman 1984, around the beginning of 2021 out of sheer curiosity. And, yeah, I should have kept my promise. I guess I shouldn't even be surprised that they would fuck up their only good DCU film at the time and completely assassinate Wonder Woman's character in said universe by turning her into a rapist. No, I'm not kidding. To this day, I still haven't watched Aquaman 1 or Shazam 1. Probably never will. But at that point, I've already broken my promise, so I thought, whatever. I'll watch whatever they released at home. The movies I did end up seeing were Wonder Woman 1984, The Suicide Squad, and Black Adam. The ones that I have yet to see are Birds of Prey, The Flash, and Blue Beetle. So, what happened to the DCU after I made that video? Well, the Cyborg film got scrapped entirely, the Green Lantern Corps was never made, Nightwing recently had its plug pulled, Man of Steel never came to be, Gotham City Sirens was scrapped, Justice League 2 was dead in the water, and perhaps the most damaging cancel project of them all, Batgirl. The movie was completed, but got axed before I could ever show a trailer, pretty much making it lost media. Well, isn't that great? That's about several projects they ended up canceling before they ever even went into production. I bet the Star Wars franchise is very proud of you. So content was dry as hell. But what about the movies that did end up coming out? How did those movies fare? Well, this is where it gets hilarious, but also very sad. Since Aquaman and Shazam back in 2018 to 2019, they have not made one movie in the universe that was even remotely profitable. Birds of Prey, although wasn't a total failure, had a divisive reception and underperformed at the box office, losing to Sonic the Hedgehog on that same month. Wonder Woman 1984, although was a theater and streaming hybrid release, lost $100 million in its entire run, and the reception was poor on all fronts. The Suicide Squad was coming off of the terrible reception of the first movie, had the same day release thing like Wonder Woman 1984, and lost the studio around $120 million. Then there was Black Adam, which, oh boy, I can describe this movie as a 2-hour vanity project for Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He claimed it would be the change in hierarchy for the DCU, except it wasn't. It would usher the beginning of the Black Adam universe, except it wouldn't. It would bring Henry Cavill back as Superman for a crossover film, except he didn't. And it would bring in big bucks just for having The Rock's name being involved in the project alone, except it didn't. And yeah, while it definitely didn't flop as much as the movies from before or after, it still lost them about $50 to $100 million in its theatrical run. Now, I can't tell you if this movie was the cause for Warner Bros. To completely reboot the DCU, but I imagine it was probably the straw that broke the camel's back for them because, for some fucking reason, they thought this movie would be a hit and save the DCU. Yeah. This movie would save it. Warner Bros. Is stupid like that. Then came 2023 with Shazam! Fury of the Gods, a movie that was so poorly marketed that most people didn't even realize it was in theaters at the time. It did so badly that it already went to VOD just 3 weeks after release and it couldn't even take the #1 spot. And according to many people, it wasn't very good either. And then there's The Flash. Holy mother of God. I wanted to make a video about this fucking movie for a while during its marketing run, but I always found trouble figuring out what exactly I wanted to say about it. But now that the dust has settled on the film, I think it's high time I talk about it now. Warner Bros. Was so convinced this movie would be a hit. They screamed from the mountains with people like David Zaslav, James Gunn, Tom Cruise, and Jaden Smith, yes really, that The Flash was one of, and I quote, the greatest comic book movie of all time. That its quality would somehow rival such acclaimed comic book films as Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Are you fucking insane, Warner Brothers? You want me to think a movie that looks like this would be on par with The Dark Knight? I have to wonder if they actually knew that this movie was doomed to fail, and so they tried to save face as much as they can by having these unrelated actors sing the praises of the movie, open up free screenings of the film before its release, and market it like this is supposed to be the second coming of Jesus Christ. After a string of flops they had for the past 2 years, it does seem like that's the case, especially when you go and sink in that much money in hopes to salvage whatever is left of your corpse of a cinematic universe. So, did it end up working out for them? Oh, no it did not. Despite the praise it was getting, the reactions were pretty mixed across the board. Not a good sign for your movie after being hyped up by its own studio. But when we get to the box office, it gets way worse. The Flash's budget is tricky. Sources keep going back and forth about it being $190 million, $200 million, $220 million, and there's even claims made recently about the budget actually being around $300 million, but nothing is concrete. What is concrete is that the movie definitely did not make enough money to break even. It has been estimated to lose Warner Bros. Around, and I'm not making this up, $200 million. This not only makes it one of the biggest bombs of all time for a superhero movie, but it also makes it one of the biggest bombs in Warner Bros. Studio history. Their one movie in hopes to be their saving grace of 2023 ended up being their biggest failure. That is just pitiful. It really is. I had no hope that this movie would succeed. Not after all the shit that has happened with the lead actor, the DCU, and the many reshoots it had to go through, which most likely messed with the script and ballooned its budget to being way higher than it originally was. I have fought back and forth with people who were saying this movie would somehow make $1 billion worldwide. I am not kidding once again. And well, look where the film is now. All I can say is, you played yourself, Warner Brothers. By this point, whatever is left of the DCU is just on a death clock. Blue Beetle, although its box office run is still ongoing, it doesn't look like it will make money in the end. That it will be yet another film to be put on Wikipedia's biggest box office bombs list. And that leads us to right now with Aquaman 2, which just recently got its first trailer. In September. This movie is supposed to come out in December. That's a really bad sign right there. I think it's safe to say that after The Flash bombed horribly, Warner Brothers' faith was all but gone and they're sending this movie out to die. And really, I don't think I can blame them for once. I think this movie is gonna be another shit show as well. It had a lengthy string of delays, originally supposed to come out in 2021, then 2022, then March of 2023, and now December of 2023. It's gone through many rewrites and reshoots, which sounds familiar, and perhaps the most damning details about the movie are its test screenings, because apparently they've gone through about 4 to 5 test screenings, each one being reshot and rewritten several times, and all of them have reportedly been received poorly. Yeah. This reminds me of Wonder Woman 1984. The test screens for that film were apparently so bad that they had to reshoot everything and delay the film to December of 2020. And depending on who you talk to, it just made the film a whole lot worse. So of course I'm not looking forward to it. I still haven't even watched the first Aquaman movie, and after all of this, I have no desire to. And I certainly have no desire to see The Lost Kingdom either. I'm just automatically writing it off as another potential piece of shit because I am sick and tired of giving Warner Brothers any more chances after an entire decade of being fucked over by them. Which leads me to another take I have that will most certainly ruffle some feathers. And that is James Gunn's reboot of the DCU. So after Black Adam flopped, Gunn announced that the entire DCU will be rebooted and The Flash would be the film to cause the reset with the whole Flashpoint plot. The first movie to kick off the universe is Blue Beetle. But no, it's actually Superman Legacy. But Blue Beetle, the character, is gonna be the part of the DCU, despite the movie not being part of it and still being the old DCU. Yeah, he's supposed to be the first character of the DCU. Oh boy, he's just making this shit up as he goes, isn't he? Look, I don't have anything against James Gunn. I liked Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad, but he really hasn't made himself look good in the eyes of people burned out by the DC brand as a whole. Him announcing Cavill's exit as Superman right as he was being shown in Black Adam's post-credits was quite the blow, but probably the biggest blow in my opinion, and the one that's really gonna put his universe under a microscope, are his comments about The Flash. Much like Zaslav, much like Cruz, and much like Jaden Smith, Gunn has said to the public on Twitter that The Flash is the greatest comic book movie he has ever seen. Will you make a comment like that while you're supposedly working on the reboot of the DCU? That puts expectations from others so incredibly high that it will be impossible to satisfy them when he eventually gets Superman Legacy released. But it's made much worse now because, like I mentioned before, The Flash was a critical and commercial flop. So this comment really makes him look bad, because now everyone's gonna be like, if you're gonna praise this shit, why should I think your movie is gonna be any better? And now, those already impossibly high expectations are now not only super low and will lead to lack of interest for your universe, but they're gonna view everything you do under a giant microscope, and if you make one small mistake, they're gonna flame you for it. And of course, his comments about Blue Beetle being a supposed part of the DCU bit him in the ass as well when that movie is seemingly flopping as well. This just makes everything he does look worse than it should be. Announcing the reboot of the DCU before the original DCEU has even finished was a bad idea, because that caused people to not care for the films they were hoping to see if it's just all gonna be reset anyway. Why should I, or really anybody, want to watch Aquaman 2 if it's just all gonna disappear from canon in a blink of an eye? I can't believe it. I can't believe we are at this point. The DC brand is so irreversibly damaged that I don't think Gunn's universe will actually work out. Nothing they say will get me to watch Superman Legacy, Supergirl, Swamp Thing, The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, especially when the Batman is still a thing. And who the fuck is gonna get me to watch Booster Gold? Really? Of all movies, Booster Gold. No thanks. I'm sorry, but I am done with you guys. You have burned me so bad that I simply can't trust anything you make in the future anymore. I'm no longer going to your content with slight concerns, but with utter confidence that they'll suck because your streak has been that bad. I can only handle so much of your shit before I finally say I'm done. I did that with Marvel recently after sitting through so many awful projects of theirs, and I'm doing it with you guys again. It's no longer I hope the best for you guys, I just don't want you to exist. We would all honestly be better off for it. You had your run, Warner Brothers. It's time to stop. You're done. And that's that. Of course, I will ask the question. What do you guys think about the impending reboot of the DCU? Do you trust James Gunn and that he'll be able to bring this dead brand back alive and well? Or do you think it'll just be another walking zombie of a franchise? And what projects in the DCU are you looking forward to the most when they eventually get made? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and Warner Brothers, I'll continue saying this until the day I die. Fuck you.